Well, I can tell you another thing to take out. You're going to have a lot of fun editing around all of this stuff. Right?
Oh my gosh. That's the thing is I know that every time I mention something that I'm like, oh, crap, we're going to have to cut this. We're going to have to cut this.
Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 44.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our Hill to Die On.
Oh, I got my shot.
Congrats.
I got a Pfizer because of the thing the school organized last time.
Because I've been in America, I have had my first shot, and in 6 days, I get my second shot.
Good. So, was your arm pretty sore?
Yeah. You?
Yeah, I was pretty sore.
Yeah, I hear that the second shot is worse, actually.
Oof. On the soreness or in the sickness feeling or?
Sickness feeling, mostly.
We'll have to see. It's a pretty good time of summer for us to get a second shot, but it doesn't mean it's going to be good.
Well, I mean, it could be worse. You could actually, be sick.
Yes, it is much better than being really sick.
I was worried that by the time I got back, I would still be the only one vaccinated in the school. But no, Japan's starting to be good, eh?
So because of the way that our summer break and recording timings go, by the next time we record, both of us will have had our second shot.
Yes.
Yeah. And you will have been fully vaccinated, the 2 weeks after the vaccination too.
Yep, I will. I can go around kissing random strangers and...
Yeah, like you always do, Ryan. You can walk around the Olympic Village.
I could. I'm not going to. A little far for me at this point.
People are saying things already. Anyway, I don't know.
People are saying things?
About the Olympics. There's already Delta variant in the village or something silly.
Of
Whatever.
Course there
I
is.
don't know. Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair. America apparently just hit a record of all 50 states have the Delta variant now. Woo! I've just been taking it easy. But no, it's been very interesting being back in America for a bit because I've been doing... Well, first of all, I've been doing a lot of staying in my parents' house because of not wanting to risk COVID. But now that I've had my first vaccine, I am doing random things. So, for example, I went bowling yesterday for the first time in 5 years.
Oh, fun.
And remembered how bad I am at bowling.
Bowling is unfortunately expensive in Japan.
It is. It really is.
I think it's because it's a game that takes up a lot of space.
Probably. But yeah, I broke 100.
Well, that's not bad. Hey, that means you got at least one spiker spare. One striker spare in there.
But yeah, we played 3 games and I broke 100 2 of those times.
Oh, altogether? Oh, okay.
No, not altogether. Of the 3 games, I broke 100 2 times.
Good deal.
The other time, I put forward an effort. That is, my bowling expertise. What can I say?
I told you I was on the bowling team, right?
No, I don't think you ever told me that.
In high school. I didn't want to do winter track, so I did bowling instead.
No, I don't think you ever told me that.
It was pretty fun. I was JV. My brother was varsity, though. He actually got a 290 in one of his games.
Shh. I hear that and I just go, no, 290 doesn't exist. Yeah. I recognize that I am bad at bowling. But you know what? It's fun as a pastime.
Yes, it is fun as a pastime.
I did see Cruella.
Cruella? Oh, the movie?
The movie, yeah.
On Disney? Or in the theater?
I went to the theater.
Oh.
Since I've at least had 1 shot, and I know that I don't have COVID because I had quarantined myself for a week after arriving, I sat in the theater fully masked up watching Cruella. Interesting take. It's basically similar to Maleficent, where they try to take the villain of the story and...
Oh, give her a reason.
Exactly. Or, well, this is actually more of a reason why she's like this. I thought it was interesting. There were a couple of choices that I felt like did not flow with the character that she becomes later. Not a hill I'd be willing to die on, but an interesting movie. Although I am really looking forward to Black Widow coming out next week.
We did the premiere access for Raya and the Last Dragon. I guess technically we didn't do premiere access. What we did was it was available on iTunes for the same price as premiere access would have been. Because my wife was like, oh, let's do this because if theaters were open and we were willing to go to theaters, we would go to theaters to watch this.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yes, we would have probably. And the price of Premier Access is cheaper than all of us going to a theater in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, yeah, but I don't want to buy it on Disney Plus because, whenever we stop Disney Plus, we just lose all access anyway. So then what was the point of paying extra for it? And then my wife said, no, it's on iTunes. And I'm like, oh, if it's on iTunes, well, then we own it forever.
Yeah, well.
Well, as long as Apple's around, I guess, yes. As long as our license with Apple is still good. An interesting thing, I was just reading an article because my brother's doing a podcast on some Star Wars things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, technically he's doing it on Ewok things.
Shh. That is a very niche.
It is a very niche Star Wars thing. And the Japanese Disney Plus has a lot of Star Wars things, but it does not have any of the Ewok movies, which I think there are 2 of, nor does it have the Ewok TV series.
Oh, what a loss.
Which, in many ways, I think I knew that at least one Ewok movie existed because I think I remember watching one of them with my brother when we were young.
Yeah.
I didn't know there were 2 or 3 or whatever many there are. I knew one existed. But then I was like, they're not on the Japanese Disney Plus. So I was like, can I log into the American one? Can I VPN into America and log in? It doesn't work. I tried.
There are 2 Ewok movies, Caravan of Courage and Battle for Endor.
Yes. I think I remember watching Battle of Endor.
I remember Caravan of Courage, and that's why I'm just like, nah, I'm okay not rewatching that.
And then there's an Ewok TV series, I think, right?
Yes, I think so.
Anyway, I can't get them here. I don't know how disappointing it is. It's disappointing in the lack of catalog of Disney Plus in Japan is what it is. So I looked up, I was like, well, how many TV shows and movies combined does the American Disney Plus have? And I looked it up. In the article I looked at in January of 2021, the American version of Disney Plus had around 1,100 items, TV shows and movies added together, about 300 TV shows and 800 movies, 250 TV shows and 850 movies, something like that. The Japanese version of Disney Plus has 471 items. I was like, oh, that's part of the reason why I can't get these things. It's got a significantly lower number of things in it, which I already knew because I've already searched for a whole bunch of Disney stuff that I grew up on that I can't find.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching a lot of the Disney catalog. I decided to watch the new DuckTales. On a whim, just went, oh yeah, that sounds like an interesting.
Oh yeah? Is it not the same?
It's basically the same sort of fun. But they do add a little bit more drama in. So, for example, in the first season, one of the underlying things is, where is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mom?
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the plot lines that is addressed throughout the first season is like, where's their mom?
I don't even know who their dad is.
I don't think that's ever even addressed, at least not in the first season.
Because Scrooge is the uncle, right?
Yes. Well, Scrooge is their great uncle, and Donald is their uncle. But yeah, I've been working my way through a lot of random things on Disney Plus, just checking them out because of funsies.
Yeah, this year is the second time in a row. Like, Japan has a rainy season, and it's usually June, sometimes into July. And I feel like last year it was very pronounced. Like last year, it rained every single day of July. And then August 1st, it, broke out and became hot summer like Tokyo normally gets.
Yeah.
And this year is shaping up to be similar. It's rained almost every day for the past 2 weeks, or 3 weeks anyway, something like that, for quite a while. And it's like rain all next week in the forecast too. I don't think I remember it ever being this pronounced, ever. I mean, besides last year. Maybe it's just because I have a selective memory or, I'm just choosing not to remember that, but I don't know. I remember there being rainy season. I remember hearing us talk about it, but I don't remember it being like, oh, yeah, it'll just be raining for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so what does that mean for your trip in a couple of weeks to the Mouseland?
Yeah, we're still going to go. At that point, it is looking like things are breaking up, but I don't think it's guaranteed, that's for sure. For a while, they were saying the rain is going to stop around July 5th, and now they're kind of saying like July 7th or 8th. So at this point, we're still safe. But yeah, that's not guaranteed, I don't think. Yeah, right now it's saying cloudy on that day. Cloudy and 29, which is probably nice and muggy, really. So we'll see. At the moment, it's not looking like rain. But it does also mean that my vacation next week will be all rained out, which means we might not get to the beach, but that's probably okay too.
Who goes to beaches, really? I know families.
Families do. I was pretty surprised because last year when we went to the beach, we were like, oof, it's COVID. It was toward the end of July. We're like, should we really go to a beach? We went, and there was only like 3 other families. I was very surprised. I was like, oh, I don't, and then there was nobody there. So I was like, oh, okay, we're good. So
hopefully it'll be something similar. This week, the movie that we watch it's more of a travelogue than anything else. And because it is that kind of story where it's about a journey, oftentimes hiking throughout various lands, we thought it'd be good to talk about various times that we've gone and had interesting stories while we've been out hiking.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nate, why don't you tell me about one interesting story that you have?
Sure. So our school has a hiking excursion that we do, generally speaking, every year, although we haven't done it last year.
Well, there were reasons, like a global pandemic or something like that. I don't know.
Generally speaking, we do a hiking trip every year, and it's quite fun. And I've been involved in it in one way or another, although less and less over the past few years. When I first came and I was single with a lot less responsibility, I was easier able to go. On my first trip, we went far. The leader that we had pushed hard, but the kids could handle it, so it worked out perfectly fine. But one of the things I learned on that trip was that in Japan, in the mountains, they will often have a trail that leads you from peak to peak to peak. And not all of the peaks are very large. Some of the peaks are just, you go up a little bit, you go to the peak, and then you come down again, and then you go to the next one. And you're only going up maybe 100 meters and coming back down to the ridge trail, and then going up 100, coming down 100. It's not that hard. Although, a lot of the peaks, especially the small ones, have paths that walk around the outside at the height of the ridge trail to avoid the peak and going up and down, right?
Sorry, I know where this story is going.
Right. So in our hiking excursions, we try to let the students lead as much as possible. And of course, the students don't realize this, but I realized this pretty quick. And I was like, why are we going up this the whole way? In fact, I got to the point where me and the other leader would just walk around the ridge trail and then wait on the other side for the students to come down from the peak. So on my third trip, we came to one of these diversions where you could go up to the peak. And of course, because the students recognized the kanji on the map and the kanji on the sign, yeah, that's where we're going. We're going that way. Whereas the other way, yes, it skips the peak, but it does take us to where we want to go also. But we came to one of those signs, and this one even said something like, "This is the harder route." Something like that in Japanese. I don't remember exactly what it said in Japanese, but it was something like that. And they were like, yes, we want to go this way, up the harder route. And I'm like, okay, we will do the harder route. And I was thinking, it's like, we could just go this way and goes right around. But oh well, okay, we'll go the harder route. Actually, I was pretty pleased with this because our hiking excursions are like 3 days long. And one of the things I realized in the first 2 trips I went, the bulk of the hiking happened in the first day and a half. And one of the benefits of the bulk of the hiking happening in the first day and a half is that there's a lot less complaining the rest of the trip. You got over the hard stuff right away, and then everything else was easy compared to the stuff you did in the first day and a half, right? It's not like you did easy stuff and then the stuff at the end is really hard.
Well, I mean, it's the first day and a half is getting up the mountains, and then from then on, it's...
Although this trail I was taking, the third one, wasn't going to be like that. It was fairly flat earlier on and then got harder later. But anyway, because they picked the hard route, and we did the hard route first, it was actually very hard. Like at one point, you had to take your bags off and pass them up the hill while we would climb up a chain that was bolted to a rock face. So it was hard. It was very hard. Like the sign said, it was clearly labeled. We went through it anyway. And one of the other nice things interestingly, about taking the packs off and passing them up the chains is that right away who has a heavier pack. Because then you feel, oh, that pack is a lot heavier than my pack. I guess I should not complain. So I was realizing that this ended up working out pretty well because the students could realize right away, oh yes, this student's pack is heavier than everyone else's, and I shouldn't be complaining or anything. Interestingly, we saw a group before we took the hard path. We saw another group, which is something we don't always see, but we saw another group, And then we took the hard pass and we saw that group again when we came down. And they said, oh, yeah, it took us 10 minutes to walk here. And we've just been relaxing here. And it took us, half an hour to go up the hard, half an hour to 45 minutes to go up the hard route and over. And it took them 10 to 15 minutes to walk in. The kids were like, we could have just gone around. Anyway, for me as the leader, I was like, wow, that accomplished a lot, actually. It was interesting to note that the leaders' packs, me and the other adult leader, had the heaviest packs along with one of the students. One of the students had a very heavy pack too. But all the rest of the packs were super light. And it was interesting, the kids realizing that, like, oh, this person's got a lot and this person's got a lot. And all the students have almost nothing. Speaking of heavy packs, there was one student on my first trip who was a cross-country runner too.
Oh, no.
But he was very serious. In fact, since graduating high school, I know that he's done some like ultra marathons, which are like 100-mile races. Anyway, he brought with him weights, wrist and ankle weights on our hiking excursion to get himself stronger. Now, if it was anyone else, I would say that they're being stupid. I mean, this kid could handle it. It's true. I still think it's kind of silly, but at the same time, at least this kid could, because to me, it's like, well, just bring water, because you could drink water or pour it out and then your pack gets lighter.
Yeah.
But really, this kid could handle the weight. I mean, really, yes, he could. So it's fine, I thought, but I was like, wow, anybody else, I think this would be, I think for this kid, it was still probably foolish, but anyone else would be like super foolish. Like, you shouldn't have even thought of it. We're just going to drop them off on the ground right here and leave them behind because, it's 3 days with this stuff.
See, I just think of that and go, I wouldn't do that to myself.
And I think this kid was serious enough that he could do it. I mean, even if he was struggling, he would have willed himself to do it. So this kid I wasn't too worried about, but anyone else would be like, that's just super foolish. So you got 1.5 on my first one.
All right. Well, okay. So I'm going to start with one that's not the hiking excursion that is affiliated with our school, because I want to tell you about this time when I worked as a English teacher in a little city called Ome. And Ome is kind of on the border of Tokyo and Yamanashi. So it's where things are starting to get a little mountainous. And so I had mountains basically right outside my door. It was a lovely, lovely place to live. Very great for just going, you know what? I'm going to just go and hike today. And you could do that. Well, I worked at 3 different schools when I worked out there. I worked at one, which was an elementary school, and then 2 middle schools. One of the middle schools was in the center of the main town area, and the other one was 7 kilometers into the mountains. So every day I would oftentimes just walk to the school that was in the mountains when I was assigned to there, because it was a good walk and I was trying to pretend that I was going to be healthy. So I would do that. And then on my way home, oftentimes, I would take side paths and side trips just to see what was out there, see what was in the area, and kind of explore the area a bit. Well, there was one time where I decided that I was going to go down this side path that I saw on my way to school one day. And it was probably about 4 o'clock when I started down this path, which, is always a great time to start hiking. I should say it was 4 o'clock in the fall. So
yeah, gets dark quickly.
Yeah, gets dark real quick. I start going down this path, and it's a pretty normal sized path. I mean, there are cisterns along the path, so it's been maintained somewhat. And then at some point, I had taken a turn that I thought was still the path, because it had diverged into 2 paths, and I thought this one is clearly the more pathy path. This one's more likely a animal trail. Well, I was wrong. Both of them were animal trails. So I ended up going up and down these animal trails for probably about an hour, hour and a half, and eventually reached the top of another mountain, which was actually the mountain that I normally walk through, because there's a tunnel that just goes directly through this mountain. So I had reached the top of the mountain that I normally just walk through, which is probably about 10 minutes from the school. And it was starting to get dark, and so I got to the top of that mountain, and there were 2 paths that had diverged. One would lead me back down the mountain right to where the tunnel starts, so I could just walk through the tunnel and go home. And then the other one would just go over this little lip and then down the other side of the mountain. So me being a very wise and smart person, decide to not go the way that I normally go, as the sun is going down in the middle of a forested mountain area that I have never been on. So I go over this lip, start climbing down, realize that on the other side of the lip of this mountain is one of those wire fences designed to catch landslides, and there was no way down that side of the mountain. And then, as all this is happening, about 100 feet away from me, I see something moving. It was a wild boar. So it is now fully sunset. I'm on the other side of the mountain, 100 feet away from a wild boar. It is at this point I go, maybe I should go back the way that I know and just take the correct route home. So I slowly backed away from the wild boar, hoping and holding my breath and hoping that it didn't see me. And then immediately, as soon as I was out of the line of sight, I started hoofing it right back to the road. Taking the second split that I had said, that split was a 2-minute walk back to where I had started, even though it had taken me about an hour and a half to get to where I was. So all that to say, I basically did this giant loop to get back to exactly where I started, and had a lovely adventure where I got completely lost, had no phone, saw a wild boar, and got trapped on the side of a mountain with a wire fence. And I lived.
Yeah, I was going to say, a boar is actually one of the better things to run into, probably.
Yeah, it is.
Not the best, maybe, but at least one of the better things.
You know, it was better than a bear. But in the area that I was in, a wild boar and me being alone probably was not exactly the best thing to run into. And this was a rather large wild boar. It was a full-grown adult boar. When I lived in Ome, I loved just wandering through the woods a lot and wandering through the mountains a lot. I would get lost 9 times out of 10. I loved doing that. By the time I left, the area that I lived in and the area near my house, I knew those mountains pretty darn well because I had gotten lost there so many times. Just lovely area to go getting lost in.
It is. It is a very nice area.
And the thing is, the one thing that's really nice about the specific area I was in was as long as you don't go too far in one single direction, there's usually a town that you can get to within an hour or two hike. So even if you get really lost, you can always find your way back to civilization. Kind of a weird story, but I thought it'd be a fun little one.
That is a good one. All right. My second story is, so back to our hiking excursion. As I started backing out because of my other responsibilities, kind of took me away from being able to go on the hikes. I was still then one of the staff on campus who had the most experience out there. Not the most experienced, but at least one of the staff that had a lot of experience out there. And back before we were able to give all of the groups sat phones, which we do now, we had a harder time, definitely had a harder time communicating. There are places you can get reception, but usually where the groups stay overnight, they don't really get good reception, usually speaking. So anyway, we knew that a typhoon was coming. And unfortunately, the time that we go on hiking excursions is still it's like the end of typhoon season. So occasionally one will happen. And my very first trip, there was a typhoon that came through while we were out there. But my group was in cabins every evening, so we were well protected. So it wasn't too big of a deal for us. But this trip, this was like 5 or 6 years into when I was here at the school, there was a typhoon that had started to come after we had sent all the groups out. And many groups we had a hard time getting in contact with. And one of the groups that had gone out went on a more remote route, which is one of the routes that I have done a few times in the past, so I knew that route well. And we were going to need to bring that group in, and they were, of course, weren't responding to cell phones because they're too far out. And there was 2 groups that we hadn't been able to get in contact with. So this was also the year that had a significant amount of students absent. I don't remember what flu it was, but there was some flu that had gone around campus a little bit. and there was a significant amount of students absent, so much so that, I mean, usually these groups are structured well in advance, and the students meet in advance, and they plan out their team name and their goals and their criteria, and we try to make it a real nice bonding thing. Mm-hmm. But that flu that year had ravaged enough of the students that they had to reorganize the groups just prior to them going out, because there was too many that were sick in each group, and the group numbers were kind of dwindling. And some of the leaders, I think, were sick too. So everything had to get restructured like the few days before they left, which is disappointing to the kids, I think, because, you know, you're going with these kids and all of a sudden, nope, half of them are sick and you can't go with them. Mm-hmm. So that's too bad. Anyway, there was some leftover food and stuff that had gotten left behind, that had been packed to go and then didn't end up going. So me and one of the other staff were elected to go out and fetch these two groups, but one being the one that was harder to get to, and we were going to go get them first. So that evening, before we went out, I had done all the planning. I was like, okay, we're going to go this route, and we have to wake up at this time, get to this train, to get out to the mountains, to get to up where the spot where they're going to have lunch, to meet them there, to tell them to come back in. So I had done all this planning, and then I get to the train station, and the other guy doesn't show up, and I was like, ugh. And I was really upset at the time. So I called the head of school at the time, and the head of school's like, fine, I'm driving you out. We're going to get that other guy up and out, and we're going to drive out. So, and in the grand scheme of things, while I was really upset at that point, it really didn't make a difference. It was actually really nice that the head of school drove us out to the mountains, because he got us much closer. We would have had to have taken a train and a bus and then had to walk further from the bus stop. But since the head of school drove us out, he drove us like right at the trailhead, which was quite nice. So I was not complaining at all at the end. And
yeah, not complaining at all.
Not complaining at all then. I mean, well, I still probably was a little upset. But later I was like, it really didn't make a difference in the end. If anything, it inconvenienced the head of school, but this was important enough for him that he wanted this to happen. So for him, it was like, no, this is happening. Since he dropped us right off at the trailhead, it only took us like an hour to get to the lunch spot of hiking. So it was super quick. I was expecting like 3 hours of hiking. So we got there real quick. We took out some of the food that had been left over that I had packed the night before and started eating it. And then pretty quickly, the group showed up for lunch. So that worked out very well. And of course, they were very saddened to learn that they had to go back. And for the route back, because of the planning I had done the day before, we had come up the south side of the mountain, and I had told them they need to go down the north side of the mountain and catch the bus on the north side. And that seemed like the best route to go. Although the north side of the mountain was a much longer hike to the bus than I realized. Going down the south side probably would have been better. Anyway, we left earlier than the group because we had already eaten some lunch. So we were like, we're going to let the adult leaders of the group tell the students what's going on. We don't really have to hang around for the bad news. We're just the messengers. So we left earlier and headed down the north side of the mountain and caught that bus that we wanted to catch. After coming down the north side of the mountain, we had come into cell phone range. So I had called up the school and I said, great, we found the one group, and it had taken us longer to go down the north side of the mountain than I had expected. So I was like, oh, it's getting really late. I don't know if we can find the other group. The guy on the other end of the photo was like, no. You have to find the other group. They can't stay out there. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. So we're like, okay, we're waiting for the bus. And then the bus comes down the road, heading down the mountain also. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of hikers on this bus. I hope we can fit onto this bus. We get in, and it's the other group that we were supposed to find. And I'm so glad they were on that bus, because that means they were like hours out of where they were supposed to be. And if we had gotten on that bus and went, and they weren't there, and we had gone to where they were supposed to be, we would have hiked for like 4 hours to a place that they would not have been. And I am so glad they were on that bus. Oh, yeah, they had gotten very delayed in their trip. And again, there was no way for them to contact us and tell them that they were delayed back then anyway. Now they have to report in every night with their sat phones and record their location, which is quite nice. Yeah. But back then they could not have done that. So I am so glad they were on that bus, and we ran into them and we told the adult leaders why we were there. And then, they headed in. They got home safely and didn't have to stay out in the typhoon, which is probably a good thing, especially because back then we weren't always staying. Some routes have cabins along them, and the group we found first, we actually met at a cabin that they would have stayed at that night. So they probably would have been okay, but still, it's typhoon. Let's make sure they're really safe.
Yeah.
So
let's not risk it on a typhoon.
Yeah, and really all they lost was the last day. It was a sad hike to be on, because it was a hike that was bringing bad news to everybody. But everybody got home safe. So,
Well, that's good news. So, for my final story, I wanted to tell you about the times that I meant to go on a hike and then failed to go on a hike.
I was thinking there might be a few of these, right?
Uh-huh. So, as we've talked about for the excursion our school does, I have volunteered to go several times. Let's see, I've been at this school now for 5 years. This past year, I volunteered, and then it didn't happen because of a pandemic. I went the 2 years prior to that, and then the first 2 years I worked at this school, there were events that had happened. So, let's talk about the first year first. So, my first year getting here, I had just moved back to Japan. I remembered how much I loved hiking in Ome when I lived out in Ome, and I said, oh yes, our school does this nature hike. I would love to be a chaperone for that. That sounds wonderful. And it is indeed a wonderful experience. The downside to it was that first year, I had started to not feel the greatest about a day before going. I'm not in the greatest of shape, so I was thinking, oh, it's probably just me not being in great shape. I probably just need to work out a little bit more, get back up into shape, and get ready for this trip. But I'll be fine. So I go out on this trip. About halfway up the first mountain, the not feeling so great that had started the day before just started ramping up. And I started feeling nauseous. And suddenly, I realized, oh no, this isn't me being out of shape. I'm sick. And I proceeded to quickly run slight ways away from the students, where I emptied the contents of my stomach on the side of the mountain. We reached the top of the mountain, where we were staying the night that evening, and I had just suffered through that evening, only to realize I had the stomach flu. I was supposed to be the adult chaperone, and I was the one who was sick. So I spent the evening nursing my illness, and then the very next day they said, Ryan, we know you're willing to help, but we don't have the ability to carry you while sick up this mountain, so we're going to send you back. So that was the first trip. That was my first failure. My second failure came the very following year, when right before the nature hike, I broke my foot while dancing.
Mm-hmm.
The world just could not contain the glory that is my dance.
Mm-hmm. That's what it was, yep.
Yeah, that is my story, and I am sticking to that story. I was involved with the school's performance and musical. They had wanted me to dance, and then I tripped and fell and broke my foot, because I'm apparently a very young, spry lad who can fall all of 2 feet and break his foot. Well, depending on how you land on it, yeah. Anyway, my second year, I was unable to go because a week before this trip, I broke my foot. So it became a running gag at our school that I was doing everything I could to agree to go on these trips and then do everything I could to get out of these trips, including and up to breaking my own foot. And so on my third year, I did successfully go on this trip. On my fourth year, I successfully went on this trip. So hopefully I have divested myself from this terrible besmirchment of my name.
Also, of your terrible afflictions, but you know.
Well, who knows? I've been very good about, not being accident prone or getting sick.
Actually, I remember the time you got sick. At that time, I was in charge of being the one sending people out to rescue the people. I was no longer being the one rescuing people, but I was the one sending people out. And I think I remember sending the van out to get you and someone else too, right? They picked up.
Yeah, they did not just pick up me. There was somebody else who was sick in a different group.
Yeah.
So there were multiple people who were sick that year.
And being the person at school, because this is what I do most now, is being the person at school that arranges things like that. It's usually about one person a year that needs to come out, one maybe two. And it's various reasons, and it's always a sad thing. I do kind of like helping those people. I mean, I only spend a few minutes with them, really, when they arrive back on campus. The driver gets to spend a lot more time with them usually. But yeah, usually it's me saying, all right, I'm sad that, sad that you got to come out. One of the things I like to say is that, this student who came out will feel like they're missing out on everything their friend's doing. And of course they will. right? For whatever reason they came out, whether they got hurt or whether they got sick or whether they couldn't handle it. There's a number of reasons why kids come out, and they will feel like they're missing out. And while to an extent that's true, what I like to tell them is that, yes, they're missing out on what they're doing, but everyone else is missing out on what you're doing, and you are having an adventure too. It's a different adventure, and it may not be as adventurous per se, but it's a different adventure. And one of the things that the students do is they have meetings throughout the day, talking about things, sharing feelings, campfire talks, And on the last day, they have like kind of a wrap-up campfire talk. And I really encourage these kids that come out to go to that final campfire talk and share with them. I said, you should share with your group your feelings, right? Because they will have preconceptions that you came out because you're a wimp or because you just couldn't walk with that broken foot or whatever, right? They will have all kinds of, preconceptions about what you feel. And I said, you should go and tell them how you felt and how it may have hurt you or whatever your feelings are. Maybe you felt glad to come out, and you should explain why you felt glad to come out. Whatever it is that you felt, they don't know, and they should know. And whenever somebody says something bad about you, Nan, about coming out from another group, they will be able to stand up for you also because you've explained it to them and you've told them why you feel your way. So I said, yes, I think it's valuable that you go, and a bunch have gone to the final day and gone to that final campfire meeting. And I'm glad they haven't shared their stories because it's probably not a long story. It's probably not a long adventure. And they can then sit there and listen to some of the other adventures. And it might hurt them in their feelings of being left out, but they should at least explain their adventure and what happened to them as they've come out so that students can know that you had an adventure too. It might have been a boring adventure in a 3-hour car ride back to the school, but still, it was an adventure nonetheless. And there'll be adventures at home too. What did you do while you were at home? What did you learn? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Yeah.
How much Nintendo did you play?
12 hours.
I do try to encourage that because I do feel bad for these kids that come out, but they have a story.
They have a story. Maybe it's not the best story, but, they have a story.
Mm-hmm. And it's better for the kids to hear the reasons why the kid came out from the kid than it is from a teacher too, explaining it also, perhaps. So
yeah.
Anyway.
And I will say the reason why I wanted to tell my story of my failures was I have a couple of really great stories, other things that have happened on these trips. Like one of the places that we have set up a camp was really close to this old religious building, which definitely has some culty vibes. But yeah, I just wanted to tell the story of my failure to go because I think that that's a funny story as well.
It is.
Especially because you can only break your foot so many times.
Alrighty, I think you brought both of these today, right, Ryan?
I did bring both of these. So I saw some interesting things in the store right before I left, and we needed to get some drinks so that we could have some interesting flavors to try out while I was back in the States. And so I saw this Fanta yogurt grape thing. So it looks like a sparkling grape / yogurt Fanta. I have no idea what this is going to be like. The drink itself has the same coloration as a Calpis, so it might be something similar to that, but I'm not really sure what to expect here.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, I almost wonder, because the Calpis was a white grape too, I almost wonder if it's going to be similar. But again, yogurt is not really what Calpis tastes like, so I don't necessarily think that this is going to taste like Calpis. But I almost wonder if Calpis and Fanta were trying to go for a similar thing.
Maybe.
With the grape. But this is a smaller bottle, interestingly, too, huh?
Yeah, it's what?
Yeah, 380. It's the same size as the premium drinks, but this is not. It's not labeled premium, and it doesn't have any sediment.
Nope.
So I don't think it's not the same kind of marketing level.
Yeah, I guess marketing level is the best way to put it. Yeah, Fanta yogurt grape.
Actually, I think it says yogurt rush, right? Yogurt. Anyway, possibly yogurt rush. Don't really know about that.
It's an interesting thing. So yeah, at this point, gonna say let's check it out and see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
It's got the yogurt smell to it for sure.
It's got that the tang of the yogurt smell.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's pretty smooth.
Yeah.
I don't taste that much grape.
Mm-mm.
Only a little bit. It's kind of covered up by the tang of the yogurt.
Oh yeah, it's very heavy yogurt flavoring.
It's not bad. I think I was expecting worse.
I was definitely expecting worse. I will tell you that right now. I was expecting this to be awful.
The question is, How not bad is it? It is. The yogurt actually is pretty smooth feeling.
It is smooth feeling, but I feel like in comparison to, say, the green apple kelpis, yeah, I liked the green apple kelpis a lot more than this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that for me, this would be maybe a 4 because it's not great. It's too yogurty for me.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think 4 is not bad, actually. I guess I was trying to figure out, do I actually like it? And I think maybe the answer is no, because I think you're right. It's too yogurty.
It's too yogurty. I think my answer is a firm no, I do not like this. Sam, I am.
It's better than I thought it was going to be. It is not a 3 or a 2, I guess.
Yeah, I was expecting worse, but it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. Because when I was surprised at it being better, I thought I might give it a higher score.
No.
But I think it is too yogurty.
It's too yogurty.
I guess if you're a fan of the yogurt flavor, or this particular yogurt flavor, because this particular is the tangy, definitely is this the Japanese yogurt flavor? Because I feel like the Japanese vanilla yogurt flavor like this is tangy. Is it like this in America too? It's been too long since I've had yogurt in America. I guess maybe it's the same. It's very tangy, plain yogurt flavor. And yeah, it's very strong. So if you like that, then this was excellent, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure I like it in drink form.
I'm going to say right now, no. No.
Yeah, I'm going to go with 4. I'll finish it, but I don't have to like it. That's 4.
You know what? I'm probably not even going to finish it, but I still think that it's not quite as bad as, say, the Kalpis. Because, again, I don't like Kalpis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like the Kalpis. So. All right, so let's move on to the raspberry Kitkats. Now, this, like the matcha one, is an adult sweetness Kit Kat.
Yeah.
So the matcha one was, of course,
was bitter.
Yeah, I guess pretty bitter.
It's bitter.
Especially because matcha itself is pretty bitter. Let's see, it's very pink outside. What's it on the inside? Oh, very pink inside too.
Oh, and it smells very much of raspberries.
Oh, maybe this is going to be okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
That tastes good.
Yeah, that's very good.
That tastes like a raspberry Kit Kat.
I think so. I think this is winning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's one of the best ones we've had, but it's definitely very good.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's the danger. I have a bunch of these, and I want to give some to my family.
But
am I going to give any to my family?
Yeah, these are very good.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say 8? Do we go that high? I think it's better than maple.
Better than maple. I'll go 8. Yep, I would definitely go 8.
I actually, again, I always comment that the Kit Kats are sweet.
Mm-hmm.
This one is not overly sweet, so it's really nice.
Yes, the one thing that is default to all Kit Kats. You're like, oh, this one doesn't have that one thing.
Mm-hmm. Yet it still tastes like a Kit Kat because there's all the crunch in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. That's a winning one right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure it was quite as good as Sakura, but it's very good.
Yeah, Sakura was very good, though.
Well, there we go. I didn't expect... I expected the Fanta to be a bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't expect the Kit Kat to be quite so high.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see next time we record, too.
Me too, because mint is one of my favorite flavors. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Kit Kat does with mint.
Speaking of things that turned out better than we expected, for the main media...
Whoa! Whoa! I thought you would like this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It turned out better than I expected.
Did you have low expectations of this?
I did. Keep moving.
We'll talk about this. We'll have words. So, speaking of great things that are amazing and influence your life in positive ways...
Fanta, yogurt.
No. Let's talk about Stardust. Stardust was the movie that I had Nate watch this time. It is based on a novel by Neil Gaiman. Very, very awesome story, and I just wanted to give him a break from reading, so I said, I'll have you watch a movie this time. And I love this movie. I originally watched it back in college and thought, hey, I should have Nate watch this. Nate has indeed watched it now.
Mm-hmm. I have now watched it, yep.
He has nothing but positive things to say about it, I'm sure. But before we get into all that, let me give you a bit of a summary in case it's been a long time since you've either read it or seen the movie. Our discussion is going to be based on the movie adaptation from 2007, I believe. So, if you have not seen it, however, I do suggest that you stop the podcast, go ahead, watch the movie, and come back and join us when you're done. Now, the story of Stardust focuses on Tristan. Tristan is a young boy who works at a general shop in a town called Wall in England. It's so named because of the wall that runs alongside it that is guarded to keep anyone from crossing over. And Tristan is trying desperately to win the heart of Victoria, a pretty local girl. In his desire to impress her, when he sees a star fall, he says that he would cross over the wall to retrieve the star and bring it back to her for her hand in marriage. She agrees, but little do either of them know that the wall is all that separates our world from the magical kingdom of Stormhold. And things were really starting to break loose and happen in Stormhold. You see, the star had only fallen because the king, who was dying, and though the normal process of selecting a new king was that all the other heirs be dead, there were still now 3 of his sons left. And so he sets them a challenge. Whoever retrieves a gem, a very specific gem, will be the new king of Stormhold. And then he sends the gem into the sky where it hits a star and knocks it out of the sky, sending it falling to the earth. As this happens, 3 witches also see the star fall to the earth and decide to go after and get that star, because eating the heart of a star will give you eternal life. So the race is off to see who can find the star: Tristan, the princes, or the witches. But this story focuses on Tristan, who tries to get over the wall and is stopped, only to realize that at some point in the past his father had gone over that wall. He then hears the story of his unusual birth, a child born from his father's brief foray into the kingdom of Stormhold, and he also receives a Babylon candle, which allows him to instantaneously travel to his mother. Unfortunately, he was also thinking of the star that he promised Victoria, and instead of flying to his mother like he was planning, he flew to Yvain, the star who had fallen. So, Yvain and Tristan then journey across the kingdom of Stormhold, where they are interfered with by both the witches and the princes, while each group is trying to get a hold of either the gem or the star itself. In addition to this, they are eventually also assisted by one Captain Shakespeare, and they discover they have feelings for each other. It's only upon reaching the wall that they admit their feelings for each other, and as Tristan goes to tell Victoria that he has found his true love, rather than it being Victoria, it being Yvain, Yvain is also kidnapped by the witches along with Tristan's own mother. He then goes to rescue her along with the help of Septimus, who at that point was the only prince remaining, and they go to attack the witches. Septimus is killed in this process, but so are the witches when Yvain begins to do the one thing that stars do best. After this confrontation, Tristan picks up the gem that had fallen from Yvain's neck. It turns to a shade of red, showing that he is indeed a heir of the kingdom, because his mother was the kidnapped princess all along. So after this, Tristan and Yvain get married and rule as king and queen of Stormhold. First things first, the story. What did you think?
Actually, I thought it was better than I expected. I think especially in the beginning of the movie, they take you to a few places that you're like, okay, the movie's going to be this, and then it's different. And then, okay, the movie's going to be this, and then it's different. Like, for instance, one of the things is I thought we were going to spend, half the movie getting to the star and half the movie coming back. Right? But they whip you right to the star. And then like, oh, okay, the movie's going to be the way back. All right, there we go. That answers that question. Right? So, yeah, to me, it's like I was trying to make a few guesses early on as to what the movie was going to be. And then it changed completely. I think the only one that I got right was that, I was holding this skeptically in my head, so I'm not sure I was convinced of it at the time. When Una says that she's a princess to the young Dunstan Thorn. Yeah. And then the king says, only an heir can, that necklace thing. Yep. I was thinking, it's going to be Tristan. It's going to be him. That's who it's going to be. But at the same time, I was like, well, did she say that just to get the boy? Wasn't quite sure where that was, too. So I was thinking she could have been lying, but at the same time, I was like, she was saying she was a princess, and I was skeptical of that. And then all of a sudden, when the king said that it had to be an heir, and I was thinking, oh, there we go. It's going to be Tristan. I was thinking, nope, now I'm convinced. Nope, she's a princess, and it's going to be Tristan.
Yeah, that one was I think, most obvious twist. But all the other things...
So, I mean, we're kind of getting to the reason why I like it. I think the thing that I liked was that I definitely came into the movie thinking it was going to be a fantasy movie, and I guess I kind of was expecting a 1980s or 1990s kind of fantasy movie, which is just a bit campy. And this movie, while yes, it is, I mean, it takes the campy parts and plays on them. Because it says, oh, we're going to be campy here, and we're going to really show it to you like that. And then fling you to some more swashbuckling stuff. So I expected it to be much more campy than it was, and then oblivious to the fact that it was campy, and it was none of that. So
in the parts where they knew they were going to be campy, they were like, we're going to fully embrace it.
And again, I guess another big thing I liked was, and I guess this probably is because it's coming from a book, although some successful movies can probably pull this off too. But you can tell that there was a lot of things well thought out. Like, besides the fact that all of the kids have numbers in their names, which is pretty silly. Primus, Secundus, Tertius. I was like, wow, that's very obvious.
Though, I mean, think of how many kids in Japan have Ichi or Fu in their...
Yeah, it is true. But you don't go down to 7.
Well, that's because people in Japan don't have 7 kids, usually.
But I do even love how all of their clothes had their numbers in them. I thought that was pretty fun. Like Septimus had a V and an II, and 7 buttons, 7 on the buttons. Anyway, pretty fun stuff there. So that was pretty neat. I think one of the things that did ruin it a little bit for me was that I recognized the Septimus actor as being a villain in Shazam, and what is he's in the Kingsman movies. I was like, oh, he's going to be the one that lives. Although Rupert Everett, who plays Tertius, the one that gets pushed out the window, I recognized him too.
Well, they all continue having a part throughout the movie.
Although I did notice that Tertius has a few more lines than the rest of them. I think he's probably a bit more famous than the others. But he was pretty fun. I liked that. Yeah, I did think that was an interesting twist, having those princes hang around.
Yeah.
It is great comic relief. I wonder, did that exist in the book? Does that play as well in the book? And probably it does, I guess. But...
Well, I mean, keep in mind, when Septimus dies, they go, oh crap, we're all dead. There's no king. Because they all realize that they're stuck together forever until there's a king. And so I think it is played for that same comic relief.
That was fun. I did like that. It's that there's so much detail in the movie, probably because it came from a book and you have to squeeze it into a movie.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't get from a campy 80s fantasy movie, right?
And it wasn't from the 80s is the thing.
Well, that's true too. It's from the late 2000s, so. Or more recent 2000s.
2007.
One of the things I was surprised about was I like that there are a lot of actors who come in, do their thing, and leave. Like even who's the guy from the British Office?
Gervais?
Yeah, Ricky Gervais. Yes, Ricky Gervais. So he's in for his little bit part. He does his fun stuff quite well, and then is out. Right, and I was kind of thinking that was what was going to happen with... Well, I got the feeling that that's what would happen with Robert De Niro's character, too. But actually, Robert De Niro's character is pretty heavy. He moves the plot along a lot, more than Ricky Gervais's character, for instance. And it's still very late in the movie that he comes, but he's still very pivotal to what's going on in the movie. So I was kind of surprised about that. I mean, I thought, okay, you're going to get Robert De Niro in for a few shots and then he'll go, but... No, he was in for quite a while.
And has a big influence on the characters' lives.
For being very late into the movie. So that was surprising and done pretty well. I enjoyed that.
I do say that Captain Shakespeare is fantastic. That entire segment, it is their fear of what is going to happen with being captured by pirates that originally allows them to open up to each other and start being like, okay, you're not a complete awful human being. Because until that point, they had been bickering and fighting and doing nothing but like arguing with each other. but then they're captured by pirates and they start opening up to each other.
And they have to work together to survive even the pirate ship.
Yep.
That was what they think anyway.
And they start working together, and then Captain Shakespeare comes in and gives them the opportunity to just relax, go on this trip, and help them in whatever ways he can. He is a central character to them becoming the characters they become, the people they become.
Exactly. Yeah. He made it very believable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did take a note that loved the training montage. His sword fighting is going to definitely come in handy at some point in the movie. There's a little MacGuffin here.
Yeah.
Let's put this in because it's going to become important later.
We're going to need him to sword fight at some point.
So I'm sure he learned a whole lot in the 3 days he was on that ship.
It did have a throwaway line at the beginning that he had taken fencing lessons at some point. So he had at least had the basics. Because what was his name? Humphrey or something like that? The intolerable guy at the beginning was like, "You've always been terrible at our fencing contests." And so you can tell that they've been fencing before. So he at least knows the basics of fencing. And so Captain Shakespeare just takes those basics and makes them polished.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I gotta say, I love the coat that Tristan gets after he becomes like Pirate Tristan. It's just a great coat.
The white jacket?
The white coat. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great jacket. And it fits with the whole piratey theme at that point. But I also really like that entire scene because all the eye rolls from some of the pirates is just beautiful comedic timing.
Again, I think the thing I really liked was that the super detailedness of it, that it was very detailed in many areas, and that you could see that there were, probably pages of description that came to this. And while you felt like you could guess to where the plot was going, things continued to change for them.
Yeah.
That was pretty neat. That you were kind of led into a false sense of security and then thrown to a different area. I like that.
Well, I will say that Neil Gaiman does write good stuff. So when I originally saw it, and here's my little confession. I've never actually read the book that this is based on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Sorry, I did forget that.
Yeah, I never actually have read the book that this is based on. So the book might be like 10 times better than the movie. But I just really loved this movie when I first saw it back in college, because oftentimes would just pick up random movies that I saw and watch them. And me and a couple of my friends would get together and watch movies all the time. And I think it was one of the ones that I had just picked up on a whim because I went, oh, this sounds decent. And then we watched it as a group and I just went, okay, I'm buying this one. This is a great.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I would have picked a fantasy movie first either.
Well, keep in mind, I am the type of person who I love fantasy and sci-fi equally. Whereas you're more firmly in the sci-fi camp. I realize that every once in a while I try to bring you fantasy and I'm like, please like this one. Because I know that getting you to enjoy fantasy with me is sometimes a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, it depends, right? I think it's the same with, you can have bad sci-fi too, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
if it's sci-fi for the fact of being, we're just going to throw in some technobabble and it'll be okay. And usually it isn't. I might still watch that movie. But to me, I feel like fantasy does that a little bit more often, but maybe I've just seen the poor fantasy ones.
I think you might have just seen some bad representations of fantasy. There are many good fantasy stories out there, and I'm going to make it one of my missions to slowly indoctrinate you with good fantasy.
Sounds good.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, it was good.
Yeah, like I said, I think that this is a excellent movie. So many just really great choices in this movie that I felt like moved the story along. Very interesting characters, very fun things. I do like little things like when Septimus is going, all right, I think that this soothsayer is lying to me. And so he runs some basic tests like, has any pleading caused me to have mercy on somebody? No. Is my name Septimus? Yes. Now throw them really high. Are you working for my brother? Oh, stab. So, yeah, just really nice things like that. I thought those sort of things are really fun, really great choices. But yeah, thought it was a good movie.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So, Nate, what have you got for me next week?
All right, so next time I have a book that I've read a while ago, so actually I have to read it again myself. It is called Bridge to Terabithia. It is a young adult book, so it is on the easier side and on the shorter side, but it is a good book that I remember reading a long time ago. So much so that I've named our house Terabithia. I mean, it's the name I use when I have to have a name for our house. I'm not sure I've named our house. Let me say it that way. But if I have to refer to our house, I call it Terabithia. And then I call the router to the house the bridge to Terabithia. Anyway. Because it's fun. So yeah, Bridge to Terabithia, it is a book that I enjoy. I have a physical copy of it, so I think I'll be reading a physical copy this time around.
Well, I never got around to actually reading this. By the time people started talking about this book to me, I was old enough that it was not on my radar anymore because I had gotten out of the age range in which it is designed for. And it didn't have enough swords because that's the type of reader I was at that age, I think.
Well, and I think this is even reading just a little bit of it today, I think this is one of the books that is going to show its age a little bit. Like, so for instance, I read a book to my kids a while back called The Mixed Up Files of Basili, Frankweiler, which is a pretty good one. Maybe we'll read that together at one point. But what's interesting about that book is it's not really an old book. I mean, I think it was written in the in the later half of the 20th century. But because they talk about kids paying $1 for sandwiches and 30 cents to do the laundry at the laundromat, like, it's feeling old because of inflation. My daughters are like, how much did they spend on that? Like, they bought 2 lunches for themselves for $1.50? Really? Everything else in the book feels fine if you read it nowadays, but the inflation part makes it feel old. And I'm wondering if this book might suffer from that too. I don't remember specifically.
That's why you don't give specifics with numbers. You just say, put down the money.
I think, if anything, this book might suffer from that kind of aging. Not because the content I can tell you for now, the material is not going to feel old, but some of the content might give signs of aging. Potentially. That's my fear in reading it now.
Okay. Well,
but the main storyline will not feel old.
We'll see how it is. I'll report back to you in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed our discussion of Stardust, and you found something nice about this hill that we were willing to die on. We appreciate all of our listeners coming along with us on this journey, and if you've thought to yourself, hey, I'd like to make sure that this podcast is able to keep going and that I'd like to support these people in what they're doing, well, know that you can. You can visit myhilltodieon.com/members for more details, and you can do various things through that system, like offer us suggestions on hills that you'd be willing to die on, that you'd like us to investigate and see if we like it too. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. The discussion can continue with us through Reddit at r/myhilltodieon, or contacting us through Twitter at myhilltodieon. Or you can reach us by email, which is, again, to no one's surprise, myhilltodieon@gmail.com. And finally, we also upload all of our episodes to our YouTube channel, which is named, say it with me now, folks, My Hill to Die On. Sorry, one sec. I just got an email from something, and I want to see if I can't get this. Yes!
Oh, what'd you get? PS5?
I just got a PS5! So yeah, I just dropped, second time in a row, I've just dropped about $800 on a podcast.
PS5 is $800. Are you getting some of the accessories too?
I'm getting accessories too. So yeah. Finally, I have been fighting to get one of these things for months. Months. Oh, blast. Yeah, I had it shipped to the wrong place.
Uh-oh. Where are they shipping it?
To the wrong house. There's no way on here to change the shipping address, I think. Yep, I'm going to have to change it by calling them up. Blast. Well, at least I got it. I've secured it. And I just have to make sure that they don't send it to the wrong house. Because this is the house I lived in Omaha. Yeah.
You don't want to drive down there to get it.
Well, it would arrive at a random person's apartment.
Yeah.
Blast. Oh well. I got it. That's the important thing. I'll let you know how it goes. You can read things for fun, too.
I read another book for fun. I was kind of hoping it would be One to Die On, but...
Wasn't that great?
There are certain things that bugged me about it. The idea was good.
I
can give it to you.
Let's hold off on giving me that one, because I have so many stinking books that I have set on my stack of, I need to read this, and then completely ignored the fact that I need to read this. I am so far behind on the books that I...
Let me give you something that I'm sure will be good, instead of one that's like, this is okay. Welcome to My Hill to Die On, episode 44.
Everyone has things they're passionate about.
Things we want our friends to try and experience.
So we've convinced each other to try different things.
And we talk about these experiences to see if we can get just one more person
to join us on our Hill to Die On.
I did say get just one more person.
It's
anyway.
Fine. Do you realize how often I screw up that line? That long line is the one where I screw up 9 times out of 10. Like, I think I have not said it the same way ever. I have changed it every single time I've said it.